Since the 8th of August, Peru has been trending on social media, with more and more residents coming forward with stories and eyewitness accounts of alleged entities that have been reported throughout the area. Someone by the name of Gustavo shared an interesting photograph and update about what's happening in the area, and it seems that the sightings are not slowing down. This is the latest photograph that allegedly depicts the mysterious entities that have been encountered by the locals. The man said that the reason the entity's legs appear to be giving off light is because it was accompanied by a glowing orb, something that was detailed in earlier reports. Residents said that these entities were either giving off light themselves or they were accompanied by something that was giving off bright lights. The original uploader said that the photograph was captured on the 9th of August. One of the residents said that it's only been in the last few days that these sightings have been picked up by news outlets, and said that locals have been encountering them now for several weeks. He said that they are extremely difficult to capture, and due to the bright lights they give off, it makes it difficult to photograph them. The man then detailed that several locals took it upon themselves to take out one of these beings, but said that bullets did nothing to them, suggesting that it was like they were wearing armor. The man continued by saying that the lights are blinding, and even theorized that they may have been used to disorientate the locals. Mysterious lights seem to be a common theme with these sightings, and as of right now it's not entirely understood what's creating these lights. Oddly enough, many people throughout the area have reported witnessing glowing orbs. These luminous, spherical objects have been reported close to where these entities have been encountered. Those who investigate the unknown have said that glowing orbs are typically described as spherical objects that emit a soft, often pulsating light. Witnesses report a range of colors, including white, orange, blue, and green. These orbs are observed to move silently through the sky, sometimes hovering in place or executing rapid and unpredictable maneuvers. Unlike conventional aircraft, they lack visible wings, rotors, or any discernible means of propulsion. Interestingly, all of these reports are happening just a few weeks after the US Congress conducted a significant hearing on unidentified objects. While previous encounters with advanced beings often revolved around the unearthing of peculiar technology in isolated settings, the most recent accounts originate from a rural area in northeastern Lima, Peru. According to local villagers, they are currently facing an onslaught from armor-clad aliens standing at an imposing height of 7 feet, bearing a striking resemblance to large grey or insectoid entities. A common theme with these sightings that have been reported across Peru is that the entities have big heads and large black eyes. According to local reports from the Iquitu indigenous people, the strange beings have been launching attacks on the community since July 11th, including one particular incident involving a woman who was grabbed from behind. The beings in question are believed to wear protective armor and give off a bright light. The residents from the remote region have requested assistance from the authorities. In response, the police and navy have been deployed to the area, and local residents have taken the initiative to conduct nighttime patrols. One of the locals said that their heads are elongated, and their eyes have a black hue. This enables them to have a clear view of their surroundings before disappearing. Their proficiency lies in their ability to evade capture, and that as of right now, residents have only been able to capture blurry photographs of them. Based on information from local news outlets, villagers have drawn a comparison between the mysterious beings and pilacaras, legendary creatures that are known to take out humans. Despite the unlikelihood of this claim, it hasn't deterred online users from embracing it. One possible theory suggests that these beings are drones that operate in the area. However, this explanation doesn't explain what these beings are, or why there are a large number of mysterious orbs that have been reported throughout the area. One of the key challenges in understanding these orbs lies in distinguishing between natural phenomena and potential unidentified crafts. While natural explanations are possible, some researchers propose that glowing orbs could be the result of advanced technology, possibly piloted by advanced beings or utilizing unconventional propulsion systems. These theories suggest that these orbs might be surveillance devices, energy sources, or even probes sent to observe and study Earth. The ability to emit light could be related to their propulsion mechanisms or communication systems. The appearance of glowing orbs has historical and cultural significance in various societies. In some mythologies and folklore, luminous orbs are associated with spiritual beings, divine messengers, or portents of future events. These cultural influences can shape witnesses' interpretations of their experiences, leading to narratives that blend the mystical and the otherworldly. The consistent descriptions of glowing orbs from witnesses across Peru lend weight to the phenomenon's credibility. Witness testimonies often share common themes, such as the orb's ability to move noiselessly, change direction abruptly, and exhibit luminosity that defies conventional aircraft lighting patterns. The allure of advanced beings has captivated the human imagination for centuries, and one of the most iconic and widely recognized forms of these visitors is what's referred to as the Grey. Among the many regions of the world with purported encounters, Peru stands out as a place where individuals have reported close encounters with these enigmatic entities. Reports of encounters in Peru often intersect with the broader phenomenon and the narrative of visitations. Individuals who believe they have encountered one of these entities often recount experiences of being taken. These narratives might be influenced by a combination of genuine experiences, dreams, altered states of consciousness, and societal influences. The reports of these encounters in Peru are part of a global tapestry of unidentified phenomena and narratives. Whether these encounters are genuine interactions with beings from beyond Earth or manifestations of cultural influences and psychological tendencies, they represent a profound aspect of human experience, a desire to explore the unknown, to connect with the cosmos, and to understand our place within the vast expanse of the universe. So, what do you make of these mysterious photographs, and what do you think that residents in Peru are encountering? Be sure to leave your questions and answers in the comment section below and help us to grow this community. Natural explanations are possible. Some researchers propose that glowing orbs could be the result of advanced technology, possibly piloted by advanced beings or utilizing unconventional propulsion systems. These theories suggest that these orbs might be surveillance devices, energy sources, or even probes sent to observe and study Earth. The ability to emit light could be related to their propulsion mechanisms or communication systems. The appearance of glowing orbs has historical and cultural significance in various societies. In some mythologies and folklore, luminous orbs are associated with spiritual beings, divine messengers, or portents of future events.
The frame. It all began on August 7, 2023, when Reddit user Velcro made a post to the RUFOs community. The post contained infrared footage depicting an incredible and chilling event. Recently, I saw this footage circulating online, and I was hoping that someone here might have information about when this was taken and where. User uVelcaro wrote, "The footage depicts a passenger plane flying steadily across the frame. Without warning, 3 circular objects rapidly encircle the aircraft, weaving in synchronized orbits. As they continue their circular trajectory, the plane makes a sharp leftward turn, seemingly trying to evade its strange pursuers. But the bright spheres stay locked on target, refusing to break their formation. Then, as the plane straightens its path once more, all 3 objects suddenly converge on the helpless aircraft. A bizarre flash occurs, and the plane has vanished. Upon closer inspection, the aircraft bears a striking resemblance to a Boeing 777-200ER. This is the same model of the infamous Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 that tragically and mysteriously vanished in March 2014 while en route from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. Soon, a second video of the incident appeared, this time taken from an apparent satellite in orbit high above the Earth over the location. The distant plane can be seen once more, ambushed by the luminous objects that previously surrounded it at close range. The higher vantage point provides corroboration that the same aircraft and incident are depicted. Armed with this new perspective, users vigorously dissected both videos. A pivotal clue lies in the coordinates briefly visible in the satellite video footage. Redditors quickly determined that a US spy satellite named NROL-22 captured the event based on partial name markings. Launched in 2006, NROL-22 was a classified satellite on a unique Molniya orbit. Reddit user, u/Drugi don't crash here, conducted an extensive analysis plotting the location of surveillance satellite NROL-22 relative to the coordinates displayed in the video. They determined that at its point of closest approach, Incinerated 22 passed within 4,434 kilometers of the coordinates in the southern Indian Ocean. With the satellite reaching a peak altitude of 83 degrees, its elevation above the coordinates was approximately 4,401 kilometers. This positions Incinerated 22 tantalizingly close to the location depicted in the satellite footage during the projected time period of MH370's disappearance. Another critical revelation uncovered by Reddit users is that the original satellite footage exhibits a stereoscopic 3D effect. This indicates the video was captured using two separate camera lenses spaced apart, allowing for parallax and depth perception. User something be demonstrated that when viewing the video by crossing your eyes, a perceptible 3D depth becomes apparent in elements like the clouds and orb flash. They also provided split-screen footage showing the stereo effect directly. This stereoscopic capability matches known sensors equipped on advanced reconnaissance satellites like the classified Incinerated 22, suspected of capturing the event. Going back to the FLIR thermal video, it depicts an unconventional camera angle that initially raised doubts about its credibility. Some claimed the view could not be achieved from standard nose-mounted optics. However, users identified the drone as a General Atomics MQ-1C Grey Eagle based on its wing shape and expanded surveillance payload. The MQ-1C can accommodate multiple electro-optical sensors on its wings and fuselage for wide-area monitoring. As user command and control summarized, this expanded sensor configuration matches the airliner video's simultaneous view of the aircraft nose and wing from a side-mounted vantage point. The MQ-1C's capabilities resolve the questionable camera positioning, lending validity to the thermal footage. To further the mystery, in the satellite video footage, a strange hole is seen forming in the clouds immediately after the flash event that makes the plane disappear. This punctured area was not present prior to the flash occurring. Once the hole manifests, it persists in a fixed position, even as the camera pans away from the area. The timing and static nature of the ruptured cloud segment suggests a connection to the energy flash. The energy release can be observed pushing the gray cloud area forward. Additionally, the flash illumination itself appears reflected on surrounding clouds. This showcases complex physics interactions between the light blast and cloud layers. The appearance of this well-timed hole, along with the visible cloud deformations from the explosion, constitutes an incredibly meticulous level of detail. Incorporating such nuanced atmospheric effects lends further credibility to the footage, showcasing advanced visuals beyond casual hoaxing efforts. If all this wasn't enough proof, a third video came to light that appears to capture the same event from yet another angle. The potential emergence of more classified footage adds to the credibility of an extraordinary event being captured from multiple recording platforms, and reinforces that advanced military assets may have been tracking and documenting the bizarre occurrence. So where did this footage come from? The source of these perplexing videos appears to be a murky YouTube user named Regicide Anon. This uploader published the footage months after its stated date of receipt, before their account mysteriously vanished without a trace. Regicide Anon's video descriptions reference classified sources providing the videos in mid-2014, coinciding closely with MH370's March disappearance. They also posted other aerial footage claimed to be leaked military material around the same time frame. Curiously, all evidence of Regicide Anon's existence has been scrubbed from the internet, with only the videos themselves persisting on archive sites. Neither the original user nor their full YouTube account is recoverable through searches or caches. Only breadcrumbs remain in the form of references to their channel's vanished content. The original videos went unnoticed at first, only gaining viewership or recognition when they re-emerged in 2023. This complete erasure of Regicide Anon's online footprint adds an extra layer of intrigue. If part of an elaborate hoax, why remove all traces of the clever ruse's creator? The meticulous elimination of the account fuels speculation that a calculated cover-up of the video's true origins is afoot. Some posit Regicide Anon may have been a genuine whistleblower who exposed classified footage and paid the price through systemic deletion. But without the full truth of their identity and motives, the original uploader remains an inscrutable player in this mystery. Their conspicuous absence only deepens the cryptic aura surrounding the videos. The mysteries surrounding these eerie videos may never be fully solved. Their origins, authenticity, and implications provoke endless questions that elude definitive answers. Yet the act of sharing this footage, analyzing details, and crowdsourcing insights represents a grassroots quest for truth at its purest. Out of darkness, light is shed, and inch by inch, we edge closer to revelations that once seemed unthinkable.
The mysterious disappearance. On March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airline flight MH370 and its 239 passengers and crew vanished without a trace, leaving the world in shock and disbelief. What happened to the aircraft and the 239 souls on board? The disappearance of MH370 has become one of the most enigmatic and perplexing mysteries of our time. In this video essay, we delve into the depths of the MH370 mystery, exploring the various theories and possibilities that have emerged over the years. Brace yourself for a journey through uncertainty, intrigue, and a web of unanswered questions as we dive deep into the mystery that includes bounty hunters, greedy companies, government agencies, state cover-ups, terrorist organizations, and even suicide. The official narrative tells us that MH370 veered off its course, turning west and flying for several hours before crashing into the southern Indian Ocean. But is this the whole truth? Or are there hidden elements concealed from public knowledge? Skeptics argue that the official investigation was flawed from the start, with crucial information withheld and vital leads ignored. Why would the Malaysian authorities be so hesitant to reveal the complete truth? Could there be a cover-up? What we know for sure is this. At 12:42 a.m. of March 8, 2014, a Malaysia Airlines Boeing 777-200ER took off from Kuala Lumpur heading towards Beijing, a destination it would never reach. Flight number MH370 climbed to its cruising altitude of 35,000 feet. The first officer, Farid Hamid, was piloting the aircraft. This was his final training flight before being fully certified. The pilot in command, Zahari Ahmad Shah, a highly experienced captain, oversaw the training. Zahari was married and had 3 adult children. He lived in a gated community and owned 2 houses. In one of his houses, he had set up a Microsoft flight simulator, which he frequently used and discussed in online forums. On the plane, there were 10 Malaysian flight attendants responsible for 227 passengers, including 5 children. Most of the passengers were Chinese, with the remaining individuals from various countries, such as Malaysia, Indonesia, Australia, India, France, the United States, Iran, Ukraine, Canada, New Zealand, the Netherlands, Russia, and Taiwan. Among the passengers were 20 employees of Freescale Semiconductors, 4 of which were scientists that together held 80% of the rights or a newly developed semiconductor patent that would only be conceded days after the catastrophic disappearance. Zahari handled the radio communications while Farid flew the plane. Zahari made an unnecessary report at 1:01 a.m., stating that they had reached 35,000 feet, which is not typically required in radar-monitored airspace, a tiny detail that would prove to become more suspicious later in the investigation. At 1:08 a.m., the flight crossed the Malaysian coastline and headed towards Vietnam over the South China Sea. Zahari once again unnecessarily reported the plane's altitude. Some 10 minutes later, as the aircraft approached a waypoint in Vietnamese airspace, the Kuala Lumpur Center controller instructed MH370 to contact Ho Chi Minh on a specific frequency. "Good night," said Zahari simply, but failed to read back the frequency, contrary to standard procedures. At 1:21 a.m., 39 minutes after takeoff, the plane disappeared entirely from radar. That good night, that basic, banal message, would be the last contact anyone ever had with MH370, as the pilots did not respond to subsequent attempts to establish contact. Primary radar, which relies on pings from objects in the sky, was initially used to track the plane. However, MH370 disappeared from Malaysian Air Traffic Control's secondary radar when its transponder signal vanished 5 seconds after entering Vietnamese airspace. Secondary radar provides more information, including the airplane's identity and altitude. The controller in Kuala Lumpur did not notice this immediately, as he was dealing with other air traffic. He assumed that the airplane was being monitored by Ho Chi Minh's air traffic control. The Vietnamese controllers, on the other hand, noticed MH370 entering their airspace and then disappearing from radar. However, they misunderstood the agreement requiring them to notify Kuala Lumpur promptly if an airplane handed off to them was more than 5 minutes late in checking in. Despite their repeated attempts to contact the aircraft, they received no response. By the time they informed Kuala Lumpur, 18 minutes had passed since the disappearance from the radar. This confusion and incompetence led to a delay in notifying Kuala Lumpur's Aeronautical Rescue Coordination Center. It was not informed until 2:30 a.m. The emergency response did not begin until 6:32 a.m. The reasons why it took so long to respond to the disappearance of 239 people were never clear. By that time, the flight should already be landing in Beijing, but as we all know, that's not what happened. The disappearance of a technology-advanced aircraft equipped with modern instruments and redundant communication systems seems almost impossible. Avoiding your cell carrier from tracking you is challenging, and living entirely off the grid is nearly unachievable nowadays. A Boeing 777 is designed to be electronically accessible at all times to radars, control towers, and satellites. The vanishing of the aircraft has given rise to numerous theories, which remain for the most part unanswered. Even now, almost a decade after the incident, the exact location of MH370 remains unknown. However, it is possible to reconstruct much of what transpired that night. Despite initial denials from Malaysian officials and the Malaysian Air Force's attempts to obscure the facts, the truth about the airplane's unusual flight path slowly emerged. Flight MH370 had intermittently connected with an Inmarsat satellite, a UK-based telecommunications company, over the Indian Ocean for 6 hours after disappearing from radar. This indicated that the plane had not experienced a sudden catastrophic event. Still, on the contrary, this gave reason to believe it had remained in high-speed, high-altitude cruising flight. The Inmarsat connections, known as handshakes, were minimal since the intended contents of the system, such as passenger entertainment and automated maintenance reports, had been intentionally isolated or turned off. In total, there were 7 link-ups, 2 initiated by the plane and 5 by the Inmarsat ground station. 2 satellite phone calls were also made but went unanswered, providing additional data. Associated with these connections were 2 values recently logged by Inmarsat. The first value, known as the burst timing offset or distance value, measures the time of transmission between the airplane and the satellite, indicating the plane's distance from the satellite. It doesn't provide a precise location, but rather a range of equidistant possibilities, forming roughly circular arcs due to the range limits of MH370. The most significant arc is the 7th and final one, determined by a final handshake linked to fuel exhaustion and engine failure. The 7th arc stretches from Central Asia in the north to the vicinity of Antarctica in the south. MH370 crossed this arc at 8:19 a.m. Kuala Lumpur time. Calculations suggest that if the plane turned north, its endpoint would be in Kazakhstan, while turning south would lead to the southern Indian Ocean. The technical analysis strongly indicates that the plane turned south. Inmarsat's second logged value supports this conclusion, the burst frequency offset or Doppler value. This value incorporates measurements of radio frequency Doppler shifts resulting from the plane's movement relative to the satellite's position. Doppler shifts need to be predicted and compensated for by airborne systems to ensure effective satellite communications. Although Doppler shift logs have never been used before to locate an airplane, Inmarsat technicians in London identified a significant distortion, suggesting a southward turn at 2:40 a.m. The turning point was slightly north and west of Sumatra, the northernmost island of Indonesia. It is assumed, with some analytical risk, that the plane then continued to fly straight and level for an extended period in the general direction of Antarctica, which exceeded its range. After 6 hours, the Doppler data indicated a steep descent, with a rate up to 5 times greater than normal. Within a minute or two of crossing the 7th arc, the plane plunged into the ocean, potentially shredding components before impact. This was not a controlled water landing, and so the airplane would have fractured instantly into numerous pieces. However, at that time, the exact location of the impact and the reasons behind it remained unknown. Furthermore, there is no physical evidence available to confirm the accuracy of the satellite interpretations. Less than a week after the disappearance, the Wall Street Journal published the first report regarding the satellite transmissions, revealing that the airplane likely remained airborne for several hours after losing communication. Malaysian officials had told the world an entirely different story, but eventually admitted the truth. Their handling of the investigation was characterized by corruption, secrecy, and unreliability. Accident investigators from Europe, Australia, and the United States were shocked by the disorganized state of affairs. Due to the initial misinformation provided by the Malaysians, the initial search efforts were focused on the wrong area, the South China Sea, and failed to find any floating debris. If the truth had been disclosed properly, debris might have been discovered, aiding in identifying the approximate location of the plane, and the black boxes could have been recovered. Instead, the underwater search for the black boxes was concentrated on a narrow section of the ocean thousands of miles away. The aficionado. On the evening of the airplane's disappearance, Blaine Gibson, a 56-year-old American lawyer and amateur explorer, was preparing to sell his defunct mother's estate in Carmel, California, when he learned about the MH370 news through CNN. At the cost of a stable career and relying on a modest inheritance, he had explored famous mysteries such as the decline of the Mayan civilization, the Tunguska meteor explosion, and the location of the Ark of the Covenant. He identified himself as an adventurer, explorer, and truth seeker, even donning a fedora like Indiana Jones. Thus, when the news broke about MH370's disappearance, he was already inclined to pay attention. In April 2014, after nearly 2 months of unsuccessful surface searches, the focus shifted to the ocean's depths. Blaine Gibson initially observed the search efforts from a distance. He sold his mother's house and relocated to North Laos, where he and a business partner established a restaurant along the Mekong River. Gibson joined a Facebook group dedicated to discussing the loss of MH370, which provided both speculative and informative insights into the possible fate of the plane and the potential locations of the main wreckage. While the Malaysians were technically in charge of the investigation, they lacked the resources and expertise required for a subsea search and recovery operation. The Australians took the lead as responsible international actors. The areas of the Indian Ocean indicated by the satellite data, approximately 1,200 miles southwest of Perth, were deep and unexplored. Ridges shrouded in perpetual darkness marked the ocean floor. Gibson began to wonder whether, despite the extensive underwater searches, debris from the plane might eventually wash up on a beach. In March 2015, a one-year commemoration event for the disappearance of MH370 was held in Kuala Lumpur for the next of kin. Without an invitation and largely unknown to the attendees, Gibson decided to attend. His arrival raised eyebrows as he didn't possess any special knowledge or expertise. The commemoration took place in an outdoor space at a shopping mall, serving as a venue for grieving collectively and exerting pressure on the Malaysian government for explanations. Many attendees, particularly from China, participated in the event. Inspired by the commemoration, Gibson made it his mission to address the lack of coastal searches for floating debris, becoming MH370's private beachcomber. He launched an ad hoc search for debris along the coast of Myanmar, the Maldives, and the islands of Rodriguez and Mauritius. His mission bore no fruitful results until fate guided a fragment of a Boeing 777 to the shores of the French island Réunion in July 2015. Not any fragment, but a flaperon, the proof of the violent demise of the missing airplane. The evidence pushed the grieving families into the cold realization of the finality of the disaster. Following this somewhat sober revelation, Gibson returned to Réunion, where he retraced the find and delved deeper into the mystery. Gibson sought the advice of oceanographers, leading him to the coasts of Madagascar and Mozambique. His intuition guided him to Mozambique, where he discovered a significant piece of debris that was confirmed as part of the doomed MH370. The magnitude of Gibson's discoveries extended to Madagascar in June 2016, where debris seemingly as if the ocean was disgorging its secrets. Gibson found 3 pieces on the first day and another 2 a few days later. The following week, on a beach 8 miles away, 3 more pieces were delivered to him. From scraps to personal belongings, each find was a new set of clues, but it all remained far from providing clarity on the cause of the accident. Gibson held out hope of finding new debris that would explain the disappearance, charred wiring indicating a fire for instance, or shrapnel-peppered evidence of a missile strike. Gibson found baseball caps, purses, kids' backpacks, and several other personal belongings from the passengers, a sobering reminder of the human cost of the tragedy. They silently call out for the continuation of the search and the resolution of the enigma. Despite the years that have passed and the debris washed ashore, the origin of the disastrous end of MH370 remains veiled in mystery, its elusive answers concealed beneath the impenetrable depths of the Indian Ocean. In the increasingly complex mystery of MH370's disappearance, 3 monumental investigations were undertaken, each with its own unique focus, complexities, and unfortunately, shortcomings. The first and most significant was the Australian underwater search, a monumental endeavor. It was a profound testament to human perseverance and ingenuity, with comprehensive calculations, meticulous analysis of radar and satellite records, oceanic drift studies, and a comprehensive examination of debris, much of which was retrieved by the relentless Blaine Gibson. The independent group, an assembly of dedicated engineers and scientists, provided invaluable insights and, in an unprecedented move, received formal acknowledgement from the Australians. Despite these commendable efforts and an expenditure of around $160 million over 3 years, the search came up empty-handed. In 2018, Ocean Infinity, an American company, took up the mantle of a no-find, no-fee basis, shifting its focus to a new section of the 7th Arc as identified by the independent group. However, their determined search also concluded unsuccessfully after several months. Parallel to the underwater search, the Malaysian police embarked on a second investigative pursuit, delving into the backgrounds of every person on board the ill-fated flight and some of their acquaintances. The depth and discoveries of this investigation remain shrouded in secrecy, with its report withheld and classified. A leaked report hinted at glaring inadequacies, including failing to reveal all information about the captain, Zahari. In the shadow of alleged political corruption and press censorship, the lack of transparency was an unsettling yet unsurprising part of the investigation. The third probe was an accident inquiry, led by an international team assembled by the Malaysian government, tasked with pinpointing the probable cause rather than attributing blame. However, this investigation was tainted from the beginning by opposition from the police, military, and government ministers. Foreign specialists who were brought in to assist quickly began to withdraw, deterred by convoluted Malaysian bureaucracy and the presence of government-owned airlines that ran contrary to international aviation protocol. A close observer noted that the primary goal was obscuring the subject, maybe because of a hidden, sinister secret, making the mystery of MH370 even more elusive. At this point, we have to ask ourselves, was the Malaysian government trying so hard to stop investigations, at times providing false data, misinforming the public, and ignoring call-outs from protesters and grieving families? What do they know, and why is it so important to keep it secret? Is there a bigger mystery behind the disappearance of Flight MH370? The culmination of these comprehensive investigations was a disappointing 495-page report that seemingly only mimicked the requirements of Annex 13, filled with generic descriptions of the Boeing 777 systems directly extracted from Boeing manuals. The report offered no unique technical value. Widespread consensus viewed the report as a whitewash. Its only real contribution was an honest depiction of air traffic control failings, partly attributing blame to the Vietnamese controllers while conveniently sidestepping criticism of their Malaysian counterparts. Released in July 2018, over 4 years after MH370's disappearance, the report essentially concluded that the cause behind the aircraft's disappearance remained unknown. Some other people have offered alternative explanations for what happened with the flight. A British blogger, known as Saucy Sailoress, suggested she witnessed a cruise missile or a low-flying plane on the night MH370 vanished, linking it to an alleged suicide mission against the Chinese naval fleet. An Australian individual asserted that he found MH370 using Google Earth, but hasn't disclosed the location, instead seeking funding for an expedition. Conspiracy theories such as these continue to garner attention and followers. Private pilot and author Jeff Wise postulated a spoof scenario where one of the plane's electronic systems was tampered with to feed false data, misleading investigators about the actual path of the plane. In his theory, the Russians might have hijacked the plane to divert global attention from their annexation of Crimea. The challenge lies in explaining how the debris ended up in the Indian Ocean if the plane supposedly flew to Kazakhstan. According to Wise, the debris was strategically planted. In July 2014, just 3 months after the accident, another Malaysian Airlines flight was downed by Russian forces over the Russia-Ukraine border. Blaine Gibson received accusations that ranged from exploiting the victims' families, being a fraud or a publicity seeker, to being a drug addict or a covert Russian or American agent. He even received death threats, which deeply traumatized him. Despite these trials, Gibson set up a formal process to transfer found debris to Madagascar authorities, who would then forward them to Kuala Lumpur. In a surprising turn of events, the honorary Malaysian consul involved in the process was assassinated in 2017, a year prior to the release of the final official investigation. What did he know that could prompt any individual or even the government to kill him? For his own safety, Gibson became extremely careful about revealing his whereabouts and travel plans. He supposedly stopped using email and seldom uses the phone, favoring encrypted platforms. People close to him have told news outlets that he suspects being occasionally followed and photographed. Despite being the only person to independently find MH370 debris, the notion that the debris is worth killing for seems incredible. Does the debris hold vital clues to unravel the mystery? Radar data suggests that when the airplane vanished from secondary radar, one of the pilots was incapacitated, deceased, or locked out of the cockpit. Primary radar records imply that the autopilot was switched off, as the airplane performed a turn that was so tight it would have to be flown manually. It's believed that the individual in control intentionally depressurized the cabin and disabled much of the electrical system, temporarily breaking the satellite link. Mike Exner, an electrical engineer from the Independent Group, reviewed the radar data and concluded that the airplane ascended to approximately 40,000 feet during the turn, potentially expediting the effects of depressurization and including rapid unconsciousness and death in everyone in the cabin. Depressurization would have been an effective way to subdue the cabin without inciting panic or resistance. Passengers would have succumbed to unconsciousness within minutes, gently passing away without gasping for air. The cabin's oxygen masks were not designed for use at cruising altitudes, rendering them useless at 40,000 feet. Conversely, the cockpit had pressurized oxygen masks with hours of supply, enabling the individual in control to breathe normally. Despite appearing as an unidentified blip on primary radar approaching Penang at high speed, Malaysian Air Force officers opted not to intercept it, deeming it friendly and not a threat to national airspace security. Again, we are faced with the same question. Why? Why didn't they alert anyone? Why did they start the search mission so terribly late? Why did they misinform the public about the radar connections? And more importantly, who was behind all of this? Is it a coordinated operation between the Malaysian government and another international agent? There's so much secrecy that it just becomes impossible to know the truth. And as time passes, there's less and less evidence to examine and fewer eyes willing to do so as well. The failure of MH370's automatic condition reporting system at 1:37 a.m. suggests that it was disconnected from satellite transmission, likely from within the cockpit. It's clear the Malaysian Air Force preferred not to admit its failure and avoided shooting down the airplane. Still, interception would have permitted positive identification and a glimpse into the cockpit to identify who was in control. At 1:52 a.m., roughly 30 minutes after the deviation began, MH370 flew south of Penang Island, executed a wide right turn, and proceeded northwest up the Strait of Malacca. During this turn, the first officer's cell phone briefly connected to a tower below, but no content was exchanged. Was he already dead by then? 11 minutes later, a Malaysian Airlines dispatcher sent a text message instructing the pilots to contact Ho Chi Minh's Air Traffic Control Center, but received no response. The plane continued to be hand-flown through the Strait of Malacca, presumably carrying unconscious passengers. At 2:25 a.m., the airplane's satellite box suddenly rebooted, presumably when the full electrical system was restored and the airplane was repressurized. The satellite box sent a log-on request to Inmarsat, establishing the first link-up. This connection recorded relevant distance and Doppler values at the ground station, establishing the first arc. An associated Doppler value suggested that the plane had executed a wide turn to the south, referred to as the final major turn. Pinpointing the exact location of this turn has proved challenging, as Indonesian air defense radar, which should have captured it, appeared to have been deactivated at the time. Very convenient if you ask me. Post-turn, MH370 was presumably on autopilot, heading south into the night. The individual in the cockpit was alive and active, but a hijacking scenario posed several complications. The fortified cockpit door was electrically bolted and featured a video feed visible to the pilots. The timing of the diversion, mere minutes after the handoff to Vietnamese air traffic control, and the absence of a distress call, provokes questions about how hijackers could have gained access so swiftly and seamlessly. Malaysian, Chinese, and FBI teams found 2 passengers with stolen passports to be on that flight. Additionally, these 2 passengers allegedly booked their tickets together. The authorities stated that they were investigating 4 potential cases of suspicious identities aboard the aircraft, finding no terrorism connection in the case of the 2 Iranian passengers traveling with stolen passports. They later cleared all passengers and cabin crew members of suspicion. On the plane, there were 20 employees of Freescale Semiconductor, a US-based chip manufacturer. 4 of them were working on a new patent for a more efficient way of constructing semiconductors on circular silicon wafers. Could the plane's disappearance be an attack on this company made by some international competitor, or even a message to the US government about the dangers of changing their trade policies? This hypothesis poses the disappearance as a convenient attack, far away from the vigilant eye of the US Air Force, maybe aided by other countries in the region, as they could probably benefit from future deals. Could MH370 have been caught in the crossfire of geopolitical conflicts? Were there sensitive cargo or individuals on board that needed to disappear without a trace? Some speculate that MH370's disappearance was part of a larger plot to shift global power dynamics or test new technologies away from prying eyes. Maybe a military test, maybe a corporate backstab. Most of these theories are insufficient on their own, based on what we know, which leaves us with one last explanation. The pilot. One figure at the center of the MH370 mystery is Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, the pilot in command of the ill-fated flight. His actions and state of mind have been scrutinized endlessly. Could he be solely responsible for the disappearance? Zahari's troubled personal life, with a failing marriage and alleged emotional distress, has raised suspicions. An internal hijacking perpetuated by a rogue pilot is a disturbing but not unprecedented scenario. With similar incidents involving deliberate crashes by pilots, including Silk Air in 1997, Egypt Air Flight 990 in 1999, La Mozambique Airlines Flight 470 in 2013, and Germanwings Flight 9525 in 2015. The latter incident involved co-pilot Andreas Lubitz, who had a history of depression and had researched the disappearance of MH370 prior to his actions. The co-pilot of MH370, who was relatively young, ambitious, and without a troubled past, is unlikely to be the perpetrator. However, Zahari's another story. Official reports depicted him as irreproachable, but unsurprisingly, the Malaysian police report withheld information on Zahari, indicative of the country's lack of transparency. Zahari seemed somewhat detached from his former life, leading some investigators to suspect clinical depression. His wife had recently moved out, and a significant amount of his time was spent alone between flights. Forensic examinations of Zahari's flight simulator revealed a disturbing truth. He had tested a flight profile similar to that of MH370. Malaysian investigators dismissed this as one of many profiles, but ignored that it was the only profile Zahari did not run as a continuous flight. Instead, he manually advanced the flight in stages, incrementally fast-forwarding and deducting fuel until it ran out. This behavior raises questions about Zahari's intentions, with some suggesting he may have left a breadcrumb trail as a farewell, and others suggesting these logs were planted as a cover-up to incriminate the pilot. While it's impossible to dismiss the flight simulator as a mere coincidence, Zahari's exact motives remain uncertain. A lifelong friend of Zahari, another 777 captain, who will keep anonymous for obvious reasons, reluctantly conceded that Zahari may have been guilty. He described the mystery of MH370 as a pyramid, with a wide base consisting of numerous possible explanations, but narrowing to a single point, Zahari. He suggested that Zahari could have managed to incapacitate his co-pilot simply by asking him to check something in the cabin. However, he was clueless about Zahari's motives. He mentioned Zahari's troubled marriage, affairs with other married women, the pursuit of young models through social media, and previous relationships with flight attendants, but deemed these insufficient to justify such extreme actions. The omission of Zahari's personal struggles and the peculiar flight profile from the official report, along with other technical inadequacies, raises questions of a possible cover-up. The full extent of what the authorities knew but chose to withhold remains unknown. It is terrifying to imagine a calm Zahari piloting the plane until the end, calmly sitting in the cockpit while 238 corpses, from 3-year-olds to 79-year-olds, comprising entire families, tourists, scientists, war refugees, and crew he probably had known for years, accompanied him on his final flight. It is even worse to imagine they were still alive and agonizing, screaming in fear for 8 hours, waiting for their inevitable deaths. We know for certain, based on satellite data, that the final dive of the plane after the engines failed due to lack of fuel was too steep to have been made by the autopilot. It must have been Zahari pushing the yoke into the last spiraling crash into the deep, dark, isolated sea that would turn the 330-ton plane into a million little pieces. Official investigations into MH370 have stopped completely. Different involved countries either quickly moved on or, like China and Malaysia, censored the news that could upset families. Many people expressed frustration with the Malaysian government's handling of the case, criticizing their failure to follow protocol and suggesting that every party involved in the initial response breached their duties, contributing to the plane not being found. Some hoped that the Ocean Infinity, who had previously located a missing Argentine submarine, would resume the search. However, this would require the Malaysian government to sign a contract, and their political culture cast doubts on their willingness to do so. Nonetheless, finding the wreckage and the 2 black boxes might not provide many answers. The cockpit voice recorder, a self-erasing 2-hour loop, is likely to contain only the sounds of the final alarms, unless who was ever at the controls was still alive and felt compelled to provide explanations for posterity. The other black box, the flight data recorder, will provide data about the airplane's functionality throughout the entire flight. Still, it won't reveal any pertinent system failure, since no such failure can explain what happened. At best, it will answer some relatively insignificant questions, like when exactly the airplane was depressurized and for how long, or how exactly the satellite box was powered down and then powered back up. The essential answers likely don't lie in the ocean, but on land in Malaysia. The Malaysian police may know more than they have dared to say. The answers may well be within reach, but they are more elusive than any black box. Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 remains an enduring enigma, a chilling reminder of humanity's limits in the face of inexplicable mysteries. It is a haunting symbol of unanswered questions and a call to explore the depths of what lies beyond our grasp. A call to be critical of those in power and the information they provide us.